thought robbers were supposed to have masks, guns. These folks don't have masks and guns.
But predetermined that I'm gonna die in debt. Right now they say I owe more than what I make in a year. I make enough in a year to barely live.
So I'm an Israeli citizen and I'm an American citizen, but I don't dare go into the embassy because they'd probably arrest me on the spot. Eventually, I won't be able to go anyplace, and that's probably eventually I'll get arrested here.
Do you really feel that now?
I think there's a good chance.
Turn the page, but all the words still read the same. Though you're lonely, your soul is free, like the wind blowing through rubber trees. You got your freedom, freedom to run. It ain't take a little time, but you don't find love. You got your freedom. All you got was your freedom, that's all you need.
How do you feel about the levels of child support in general that are awarded? Do you think
They're outrageous. They didn't take into account the maybe they did on paper, but they didn't really take into account the money I was paying towards my daughter's college. They wouldn't take into account the money I was paying towards back taxes. It's all on paper, but they don't take it into account. They just sort of look up, zip, zip, zip on the matrix, and the matrix is too high. I mean, if I had no other debts, if I had a normal life, if I had money in the bank, if I'm earning $167,000, maybe $906 is reasonable. But to not even listen to the fact that my job has changed, I'm not earning that, there's no possibility, there's no commission, I'm earning 95, period, flat, that's it, and to still apply that? I think that the guidelines put the children first so much that they put the fathers into a box where they really can't improve the financial situation.
Here's what the guidelines say in the preamble. It says that following a family breakup, the standard of living of the children must remain unchanged. Well, if you have the same income level coming in one household that is now coming into two, and one of the standard of livings is going to be the same as it was originally, what does that mean for the second household? What standard of living is possible there? Zero? This is a fundamental flaw in the guidelines, in the driving principle of the guidelines. The fact of the matter is that following a family breakup, everybody suffers. They have to. This is the consequences of the action.
The strong advocate of child support says, well, you got to have you need a house, you need a car, you need a phone, you need to heat your home. Well, you weren't going to do that if you didn't have a kid. The amount that they want it has nothing to do with the actual incremental cost. The incremental cost being defined as the additional cost of your household caused by the addition of a child.
What the law should do is make it clear. All right, you're coming in, you want a divorce, you're breaking up your covenant, you're breaking up your family. Well, then everybody is going to suffer a loss of standard of living. Furthermore, an intelligent and rational policy would then make incentives for each of the new households to raise their income levels independently, to raise the standard of living back to what it was originally. Now, what does the guideline do? It does the exact opposite. It actually provides disincentives for the non-custodial father to raise his income level. If he tries to take a second job to raise his income to provide properly for the children when he has them for visitation, at the very least, he's punished further for doing so.
In marriage, I had a reasonable child support. But when it came to college tuition, this divorce prevented me from paying everything for that divorce. So I didn't have enough money, but I did work for Arthur Anderson. My daughter was a National Merit Scholar. And so I did all the right things, and I got her awarded a special scholarship from Arthur Anderson, where I worked, of $5,000 a year. Well, and then later on, I found out that the $5,000 a year didn't count towards my support of her.
He paid nothing at all, and it was difficult to pay for classes because my mother and I had to make up for the portion that was assigned to him.
Now, didn't you get a scholarship from Arthur Anderson?
Actually, yeah, I did. I know that there were disputes over child support. I don't know the details of those disputes. I mean, I was not party to them. There was the Snow Buddha ship. So there you go. There's one thing that was disputed. My mother would say that those $10 were certainly late. I don't even know if they were ever paid.
Except for this thing about tuition. I had paid and was paying all of my child support bills.
And how long did that go on for? I mean,
Well, that was from 1980. 1980. I mean, everything was paid except for this thing about the college and the $5,000.
Child support statutes are unconstitutional because they infringe upon a parent's right to raise their children as they see fit. The Supreme Court has said in a long history of decisions from Meyer versus Nebraska way back in the 20s to Troxel versus Granville, which is a real recent one. I mean, to do with grandparents' visitation out in Washington, state of Washington, that the parents have a fundamental right, a liberty interest they call it, to raise your children as you see fit, okay? To make education decisions, religious decisions, what kind of clothes they're gonna wear, you know, all that kind of stuff, to spend for them as you see fit. And at the only time the state or the federal government can intrude upon that right, or that fundamental right, is showing by clear and convincing evidence that you're an unfit parent. Now that's the standard for the state to pass a law or intrude upon your privacy or family, into the family realm. However, in the context of a divorce, okay, and people don't think of it this way, but you got to think outside the box. I mean, people think when you get divorced, well, that's just what happens. Somebody gets custody, somebody doesn't, you know, child support and all that. But think about what's happening. The state is passing a law, okay, stepping into your home, figuratively, and telling you how much you have to provide for them, quote unquote child support, to what extent you have to provide for them. So in the context of divorce, the state steps in and makes all these decisions for you and basically substitutes your judgment with theirs as far as making certain types of parenting decisions.
My second divorce, and I got custody of Kenny and Corey for my second marriage simply because my second wife didn't want him, not because I was this great guy, but she didn't want him, and I took him, and you know, that began a road that made me realize all the mess I made with my daughter from my first marriage. And through getting clean and sober, growing up, taking on responsibility, you know, I realized through life experience, my drug addiction, my alcoholism, the biggest thing behind that was I didn't like responsibility. I had a huge fear of it. And I started paying about 6 years ago, I started paying consistently. And I had paid consistently for about 5 years, up until about a year ago. I tried to become self-employed, and it didn't fair to.
Suppose you want to change jobs into one that has more regular hours, or you want to cut down on your hours so you could spend more time with your child that's living in your household. Or suppose you want to live in safer working conditions. What judges often do, and I see this very, very often, is say, well, you know what, you made a choice not to work in job X, we're going to treat your income there. So basically what you do is you have to do job X that pays that amount of money, or job Y with a lot more hours, or you'll go to jail. And that's traditionally the hallmark of slavery.
Our false definition of power was basically the following: feeling obligated to earn money that someone else spent while we died sooner. And no woman would be stupid enough to define that as power. They would define that as obligation to earn money that somebody else spent while they died sooner. And they would have recognized that that was a different form of slavery.
You know, the burden for me now is the interest and penalties. The back child support that I pay is towards the arrears, but the interest and penalties first. And it's never enough to get rid of the interest and penalties and start hitting the actual arrearages. So this is the biggest 8-ball I've ever been behind in my life. And I really feel that unless I hit the lottery, have a serious windfall, and get rid of that, at least the interest and penalties, and stay current, that I'll never get rid of this debt. You know, the interest and penalties are so great for someone with my income that I'll die with my situation now. I'm a single parent of 2 children from another marriage, and I don't you know, trying to boast or make me a special case, but there's special circumstances here. You know, I have not received child support from my second wife, you know, which is a totally separate thing, but this is my case. Please hear me as an individual. You know, and this was my intentions, was to get it lowered, because I did try to start my own business, and I wasn't making any money. And I wanted to get rid of the interest and penalties. You know, 13 months without a day in court. You know, I could understand if it was going to take a year because the system's backed up. But, you know, now we're going into a second year. You know, it's not fair.
So how much do you owe him?
I believe I at the current rate with penalties and interest, I think it's around $213,000.
$213,000. You make about $60,000 a year. Or?
Right now, I make less than. Right now, I'm lucky if I make $500 a month. I'm actually making zero right now. I'm not making. I was just incarcerated for 8.5 months for not paying child support, and so.
And why did that? How did that happen?
I had not been able to find employment in any of my, you know, as engineering fields at all for several years, and during that time, I was paying what I could. Sometimes it was only $100 a month, but I was making payments. And then in the year 2004, I was arrested by the Department of Revenue for non-payment of my child support. That was the next time I heard from the Department of Revenue in Massachusetts, was in the year 2004. That was after I had already gone down to the Child Support Enforcement Agency in Iowa. They moved from Minnesota to Iowa in 2003. And I had given them my address. I gave them a copy of my court orders. And I said, I have this outstanding support problem. Right now I'm unemployed. I don't have enough money. I can't meet this support obligation at all. I've been sending a little bit of money when I could, and I need help. And their response was, you came to the right place. We can help you fix this up. We have an interstate agreement with Massachusetts. We'll do the legwork, we'll evaluate it. We send everything back there. They process it through the court system. But don't worry, Mr. Straight. This is a fixable problem. We can get you resolution. And I thought my problems were going to be resolved. I thought I was finally going to get some help. 2 months, that was approximately 2 months later, 3 state troopers came in and arrested me on the Massachusetts warrant.
Arrested you where?
In Iowa.
They came all the way to Iowa to.
Yep.
arrest you?
Yeah,
So you were in jail for how long?
8.5 months. So I had an 11-month sentence to serve out of a 2.5-year total sentence. The rest is suspended.
Have you ever been in jail before?
Never.
What happens is you have, at a certain point when his income was up, and the Department of Revenue knows that because of the income stream that comes to them through payroll withholding, they grab him and they set the child support amount. When his income goes down, he's unable to get the amount changed. And so unfairly, his burden increases relative to his amount of income. Now on top of that, when it gets bad enough, we will expend tens of thousands of dollars to hunt this person down now, who simply can't perhaps stick his head up for risk that he's going to be jailed. We'll spend tens of thousands of dollars to hunt the person down. We will incarcerate them at a cost of thousands of dollars a month. We will have money spent on prosecuting these people, and generally have them come out of that whole experience owing an amount of money that they simply would never be able to pay.
How did you fall behind? How did it happen?
Well, I was already behind because, I remember we were talking about the $100 order that I was in fact paying, and then I was found in contempt of not paying it. I was behind for all those months that I had paid that the judge said I didn't pay.
How were you paying that money?
I was paying it to the Department of Revenue. First they were taking it on my unemployment check directly, and then when I went to work in Minnesota, they didn't have the mechanism to collect it wasn't there.
Why
yet,
did
so I was
DOR
mailing
think that you weren't paying that money?
They didn't. It was a private complaint. There was a contempt complaint filed by my ex-wife, and the DOR wasn't the one that was filing the complaint against me. They were actually reporting to me. They actually, when I called them, they sent me a thing saying that I had the breakout of all my payments, saying that I in fact had paid them, and that they had sent the checks to her. I called them. I was upset because I knew I was paying them checks.
So then what happened?
That was the order that I went and I had my other job. I found a full-time employment, a regular employment position. My salary was, like I said, I think it was around $1,200 a week gross, about $800 a week bring home. And then I got a $550 a week order.
How did that happen?
There was a hearing held in Massachusetts.
Okay.
Modification. I wasn't there for it. I have no copies of any modifications, at least none that I'm aware of. I don't know what was discussed there.
Mm-hmm.
And it went up to $550 plus $138, I believe it was, for back support. So it makes it about $687.
But when it 550 is way above the guidelines. So
Based on what when you go to the DOR's website and you punch the numbers in on their little worksheet that they provide for you, 550 is way above what the guidelines call for that amount of.
So how did the judge come up with this 550 figure?
I'm not sure. I had no knowledge of how that came about. So now I was immediately falling behind by large amounts of money fast. I contacted DOR, and I was in constant contact with them, writing letters. I have a stack of letters, and I got a stack of their responses to each one of my letters. And the gist of each one was just pay, or there's nothing we're going to do to help you. And I sent in my pay stubs. I sent in who I was working for on the day that the order was issued. The order said that I was working for a company I wasn't working for, and I could prove where I was working. You would think that somebody would have tried.
Why didn't you go back to
Massachusetts?
Why didn't you go back to Massachusetts and get your child support lowered?
I didn't know how to do this.
In order to modify an order of support in the probate court, a person needs to file a complaint for modification, needs to know how and whom to ask for getting that served upon the other party, needs to then, once it's on the record that the complaint is filed, that's nothing. It simply says, okay, there's an issue now. Then they need to do what I've yet to see more than one or two individuals who are not attorneys know. You have to file a motion and ask for a hearing. And they don't know that the whole system is designed to have a preliminary order, which is followed by a discovery period, which is followed by a final trial or an agreement for judgment, and that would, in this illustrated case, be for simply the modification of the amount of child support. Broad brush painting, it's easy for the woman to get help to raise the child support. it's near impossible for the man to get help unless he's got money to hire an
Why
attorney.
is it easier for the woman to get the child support raised? I mean, procedurally, is there less steps or?
No, it's because if the woman is a beneficiary of state aid, the Department of Revenue will send an attorney to make the case and to do all the steps to bring the man for the court. If it is a woman who is not receiving state aid, then generally there has to be a significant amount of arrearages before the Department of Revenue allocates resources to going out there and making a case against the man. But that also...
I can't get my life better for me to go and try to get a loan for a car because I owe. The first thing that comes up, DOR, Department of Revenue. First thing that comes up.
Well, how do you get to your job? I mean, I assume you have a car now.
I have a car, and you know.
Well, how'd you get the car?
Money that I borrowed, pretty much. And
Is it a Mercedes?
No, it's a 1990 Chevy Corsica. You know, and as a matter of fact, it's not here tonight because it's at the local garage getting an exhaust system put on it tomorrow morning. You know, and I'm not a material guy. I am not a material guy. I've never had to have a lot of things, but I want better for my children. I want better for Candace, my daughter from my first marriage, and I want better for Kenny and Corey. I want to show them. You know, Kenny and Corey have lived in this mobile home for 9 years. And they say, why can't we live in a house?
The way it works does not distinguish between deadbeat dads and good dads, or deadbeat parents, okay, and good parents. It lumps everybody into the same bucket and treats them all the same.
In this country, you are presumed as a father that to not be capable and or willing of taking care of your child appropriately. And it matters not that you may have done so or even been the only breadwinner for many, many years before for your children. All financial discretion is removed, and you are presumed to be a deadbeat when you walk in there. At the same time that these same courts refuse to presume you as an equal parent.
A Supreme Court case called Stanley versus Illinois, and it has to do with Illinois, state of Illinois back in the 70s had a law in the books that presumed, again there's that word presumed, that an unwed father was an unfit parent. So there was the fact that he was not married. Okay, so this guy named Stanley, okay, he was involved with the kid, you know, okay, involved with the kid's life, and the mother died. Well, guess what happened to the kid? The kid became a ward of the state. Instead of the father automatically getting custody, which you think he's the dad, right? He was deemed to be unfit, presumptively, okay, and this kids became, or kid, or however many they were, became wards of the state. Well, he challenged this law. Okay, went all the way to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court said, no, you can't do that. Okay, parents have a constitutionally protected right, even if you're unmarried, right to privacy, liberty interest, to raise your children to custody of your child, right? You know, and the quote the court used was that presumption by procedure is cheaper and easier than individual determination, right? And I love that. Okay, it's a mouthful, but think about it. That's what the statutes in New York are doing. They're presuming, because it's easier to presume and make a presumption that you're not going to provide for your kids than making an individual determination on an individual basis whether this guy's going to do it or that person's going to do it or that woman's going to do it. Okay, it's just lump you all together and presume, and that's unconstitutional.
Basically, like, didn't want to accept that she was seeing somebody else. Now, I just told myself that she's just something about her, you know, nothing for me to worry about. So, but come to find out, she was seeing somebody, so she was unsure if my daughter was mine or not. And that's why she put it up for question of paternity. And when it come up for time to find out, she didn't want to know. She didn't want to face up to it. And I did, because it bugged the hell out of me for a long time.
Did your daughter ever have another father figure in her life?
Yeah.
She thought was her father?
Oh, yeah.
Or?
Yep. Yeah, she's got another guy that my wife was seeing that she kept saying that's your father, that's your father. This other guy, and she calls him dad. And she calls me Ty. But she knows I'm her real father. And she knows that other guy's not her real father now. So I'm sure that she's kind of confused about the whole situation too. At 6 years old, I don't know what I'd be thinking.
Let's say you have an unwed mother. She's in the hospital. She's just given birth to the child. In the state of Massachusetts and in just about every other state, what's happened is that the Child Support Collection Agency has gone in and trained nurses in the hospital on how to go to the room of the mother with the newborn baby and find, oftentimes the father is there visiting, and to find this person and get him to sign a form that says, yes, he is the father of the child. It's called a paternity acknowledgement. Okay, that sounds fine, right? Mom says, you're the dad. He says, wonderful, I have a baby. He signs the form. As time goes on, it turns out that he begins to get his suspicions. Maybe he's not the dad. The child doesn't look like him. And besides, they've broken up. Mom's never letting him see the child, and he's paying a lot of child support money for a child, and he's beginning to suspect that it's not really his child. He goes and he gets a DNA test, a blood test, and lo and behold, the test comes back and shows he's not the father of this child. Wouldn't you think that that being the case, that the state would say to him, oh, well, you don't have to pay child support anymore? Actually, that's not the case. The law is he does have to keep paying child support until the child is either 18 or 23, depending on whether the child goes to college. And so the state doesn't care that he's not the father. What they care about is collecting the money from him.
I wasn't ready to be a father at the time. I kind of was used. She wanted to have a baby, and it told me that she was on the pill and wasn't.
Did you ask her to stop the pregnancy?
Yeah, I believe I did say something about it, that she said she wasn't going to go for that. And then I basically stuck around because I had a daughter.
Children today represent meal tickets. If you want to get on welfare, you got to have a kid. You want Section 8?
I was actually paying child support when I first left my wife, before the court order was even ordered.
No, voluntarily?
Yes, I was paying it voluntarily. I got all the receipts, the stub, everything like that. Then I got court ordered because I worked at a good job over in Orange. I was paying quite a bit a week then. But yeah, I think there was like a 9 months space where I didn't work whatsoever. I wasn't collecting, and I didn't pay my child support then. And since then, it's all basically, for the last 4 years, I've been paying it on the last 3 years, I've been paying it on my Social Security disability check. But nobody's ever reported to the DOR, so it looks like it's never been paid. So it looks like I owe $28,000. And actually, I owe like between $3,000 and $4,000.
So how did you get behind the $3,000 or $4,000?
That's basically when I had my accident. When I fell out of the first story building. There was like a year where I didn't work at all. I didn't collect no.
Did you try to get your child support lowered at that time?
No, I didn't. That's what I should have done. I should have sent in paperwork for, well, right about then is when I got my paperwork to start paying child support. And I couldn't work because I was disabled. I had 27 broken bones. I had a cast on my leg for over a year.
States, the amount of child support that is ordered is way over what it actually costs to raise a child. And it is way more than a non-custodial parent, typically a father, can afford to pay. And so maybe he's just struggling. Maybe he's just getting by. He's working 2 jobs, and he's just making those payments. And then what happens? His car breaks down, and it requires a $1,000 repair. He gets riffed. He loses his job. He gets laid off, even if it's only for a few months. He he's a roofer. He falls off the roof. He breaks 7 bones. And now he's out of work for 6 or 8 months. The system is unforgiving. It gives him no assistance. Nobody will come to his bedside in the hospital and say, by the way, unless you file a certain form with a court, you're going to have these child support arrearages keep adding up. And under federal law, nobody is allowed to forgive those. So that while he's sitting in his hospital bed, or while he's unemployed for 3 months, or while his truck is broken down so that he can't be making deliveries and earning money, in a very short period of time, he's $10,000 behind. For a poor man, that's a lot of money. And under federal law, no judge, no matter the judge, even a sympathetic judge, does not have the power under law to say, oh yeah, you were in the hospital for those 3 months. I'm going to erase that child support debt because obviously you weren't able to pay it. That is not allowed under law. A person has to go to court. Well, how are you going to go to court if you're in a hospital bed in a body
What's
cast?
happened is she never reported to the Department of Revenue that I've been paying, that she's been accepting a Social Security check for both of my kids for the last 3 years now. She never reported that, and I never reported to DOR that she was getting that money. So the DOR automatically thinks the last job that I worked, that's what they go by. They're taking out $100 and something a week out of my check. So they kept doing that for the last three years. But in all actuality, she's been getting this money for the last 3 years for my Social Security check. And nobody's figured this out. They haven't looked into the computer and said, oh wow, she's already been getting child support. Why are we keep sending him lockbox bills stating that he didn't pay his child support this month? That's basically what's going on. Nobody's clicked together and joined and looked at the situation going, wow, you know, she's getting child support. He's been paying it. I don't mind paying her $550 a month. That's no problem at all. But now they're cutting into my living expenses, which I'm getting $463 a month now to live on. That's my rent. I mean, I can't eat off that. I can't pay electric. I can't pay cable. I can't pay phone. I can't get a car. I can't do nothing with my kids. That's my rent money, to have a roof over my head. I mean, they should look at the whole picture, not just me. Look at her, what she owns, what she's got, what she's living with, and what I got, and what I'm living with. I think they'll open their eyes up a little bit and say, wow, this guy's, you know, he's been living in this apartment for 3 years. He's been doing good. All his bills are paid. He's been doing it only on $1,000. But here's a woman that's got a whole house and a vehicle and all that stuff, and she's got rental income coming in. She's got my checks coming in, and whatever other money. She got boyfriend living here, giving her money, and she's complaining she can't live on that. Now, how am I doing it and she's not? And she owns twice as much as I do. I can't figure that out.
When somebody looks at me and says, well, no, I can just have them come here and look at my house and so yeah, I have no problem supporting my kids. Everybody, in my opinion, all parents have a moral obligation and should have a legal obligation to support their children. However, there's a difference between supporting your children to what you deem to be an appropriate standard and the state telling you to what extent you have to provide for your children. And again, the discrepancy in the standards between married people, married couples, and divorced couples.
Originally, my arrearages started with my ex-wife pulling welfare fraud. She was collecting welfare and neglected to tell him that I was paying child support. And then when I did lose my job and was out of work and wasn't paying, when I finally got a bill, it was like $2,250 that I had already paid that welfare wanted from me. Then they threatened that they were going to take my tax return, and I stopped filing taxes. Cut my nose off of my face to spite it. A dumb thing that I done. And I don't know, I've paid support off and on, and different times when out of work or hard times I've gotten behind on it. But now with the interest, I figured I can't even get into court to try and change things because it costs too much. I got a subpoena her or whatever. She's not even in the state now. Took my son, she's down in Virginia. There was even times when I was out of work or on unemployment, and it went into court, and the amounts have been changed up and down several times throughout the years.
So you were able to successfully go into court and actually had your child support lowered at certain times?
Yes. But it's only, after weeks of being out of work, before you get into the court, all those weeks, it don't change for those. So those are weeks, you'd be $150 a week behind 6-8 weeks before you get into court. I work construction and stuff, so there's a lot of times every winter it'd be out of work and stuff. Unemployment wouldn't cover the bills and pay that amount of child support and stuff. By the time you get in, there's already weeks and weeks behind again. Builds up.
Well, how far are you behind at this point?
Right now, they say I owe $30-something thousand. But most of that's in penalties and interest. And my driver's license for non-child support.
Oh, they have it?
Yeah.
When did that happen?
I found out last time I got stopped. driving after suspension.
Do you depend on your license?
Yeah.
for-
Now I gotta have my girlfriend drive me to work. That's why I figure I gotta go talk to the DOR now too, or something, registry. I gotta, but it's just a hassle.
Do you have any like professional license? Like, as you said, you are.
No.
Okay. So I've heard
Otherwise,
that-
they'd have probably took them too.
That's what I was wondering. Yeah.
Does that make sense? You're gonna take somebody's method of making income and then expect them to pay? I don't understand that. You're gonna take somebody's driver's license, or you're gonna take their contractor's license so that they can't make the money that you want them to pay.
Point.
That's the way it works. You know, you even yourself knew if I had any kind of a professional license where I told you they took my driver's license, they would have took that too. You're gonna take away my way of making income and then expect you to pay. Because I'm behind. You get behind, so we're gonna take your license so you get farther behind. Yeah, I don't think the system quite works right.
If the license is taken away, that person, you know, if they, assuming that they can't pay, and now they have their license taken away, there's driver's license, professional license, you know, and or, they're not going to be able to earn the money to pay. So it's, you know, sort of absurd in a sense to take away somebody's ability to earn money when what you're trying to get them to do is earn money and pay you. It almost appears as though it's spiteful, that it's an act of spite, you know.
You received no child support for your two boys?
Very little I have. She actually, she was incarcerated. We were married in New Hampshire. She lives in New Hampshire. And she was incarcerated a year ago.
How much money is owed you? Do you
Well,
have an
you
idea?
know what I did about 5 years ago was I had her in court, and they were gonna take $50 a week from her or something like that, and she owed me like $6,000 in back child support. I said, I don't want the $6,000. I said, let's start her fresh. You know, I'd like to see it from here on out, and then another, you know, 3, 4, maybe another 5 years went by, something like that, and then it was out of my hands. I wouldn't have done that again. I wouldn't have waived it again, but it was really taken out of my hands this time. The state, the counselor or the state was very aggressive and, you know, said, this is what I'm doing, you know. And,
So you didn't have a say in it? Or
no, I didn't. I couldn't stand up and say, I don't want this woman incarcerated. I couldn't. I asked the counselor that. I says, I don't want that. It was right near Mother's Day of 2004. And you know, really, it's never been about the money, really. I mean, she owes me like $10,000 right now. And it's really not about the money. I just always wanted to pay more attention to him. I got custody. Corey wasn't even 2 years old yet. Kenny was 4, Corey was 2, and I was changing diapers. All of it. Bringing them to daycare, getting them up in the morning, getting them ready, bringing them to daycare. You know, and then, like I said, bringing them to school, picking them up, helping them with homework, cooking them supper, all their meals, you know, for the most part. They've eaten a lot of pizza in their day, but, you know, I'm Kenny and Corey's world. I really am, and I'm getting emotional. They trust me. I'm right there every step of the way, you know, when it comes to them. And you know, I regret I didn't do that for Candace, you know, that I couldn't. You know, but...
do you think that if your daughter wasn't taken to Florida, that you would have had a better relationship with your daughter?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Deadbeat Dad. That's what you want to call me? Okay. Yeah, I was. I was. Here I am. Okay, this was one chapter of my life. Here's another one. I'm raising 2 kids on my own now. I think I proved that I'm a changed man. You know? I've supported these 2 kids all by myself. Am I proud that I made Melissa, my first wife, have to go through all that and still waiting for money? No. But I'm a different guy today. You know? I want that to be seen.
But even in this divorce, if we skip through what happened during the divorce and go to the financial track, until the day I left, I was completely paid up in my child support. That wasn't that wasn't the reason I left. From a weekend retreat I went on, and I found that the police had been to my place. The landlords upstairs told me, and I went to the police department, and there were protective orders against me again. It was like the 5th or 6th time. But this time, sexual abuse was checked off against Adam and Rachel. And I had no idea what was going on or what this was about. And I checked, and it turned out that my wife was trying to bring criminal charges of sexual abuse against my children. And I'd never touched them. I'd never done
He
anything.
thinks that what happened does not qualify as abuse, but he asked somebody about it, and basically the system is designed so that if a little kid says anything that remotely resembles abuse, if it gets into the legal system, it's very difficult to get it out. And he told me that, he wasn't sure if something was wrong, and he said something, and then everybody started going into a panic, and he thought, well, if they think something's wrong, then something must be wrong.
That's the real nuclear strike. Once that allegation is made, Dad's out of the picture completely. Meanwhile, they're at the mercy of brainwashing by mom, or by, even worse, by some authority.
My name is Michelle Leoben. I'm Deputy Chief of the Criminal Bureau at the Massachusetts Attorney General's Office. I'm here to speak on behalf of our office's strong support for Bill 1822, which increases the maximum penalty for failing to support instances of child abuse. The full magnitude of the child sexual abuse scandal of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese came to light 3 years ago. In Massachusetts alone, hundreds of victims had come forward to report sexual abuse by priests. Sadly, much of this abuse was known to the Archdiocese, but was not reported to law enforcement. At that time, it was not illegal for a priest to fail to report such abuse. Thankfully, the legislature acted and amended the law so that now priests and other members of the clergy are covered by the reporting requirements. I'm here today for the next chapter, which is to increase the penalties that are associated with failing to report.
It's extremely rare for a biological father to sexually molest his own children. But because of the hysteria of the last 3 or 4 decades, there's way too many, child experts that are really invested, in the belief that this is a common occurrence.
As you all are aware, sexual abuse of children is an epidemic, and it's vastly underreported. We have now learned that reporting is one of the primary ways to combat sexual abuse.
Basically, this is the situation I found myself in. I had no money net. I had no savings. My wife had taken all of our joint savings under a ruse. She said she wanted to have joint control so I wouldn't overspend. We put our savings into joint names, and the next week she pulled it all and she gave it to her divorce firm. It was back in '96. I had no savings. The only thing I had was a good job. I couldn't afford a lawyer. At this point, I had gone through my lawyer and owed them $16,000. And they of course, abandoned me, of course. And I had to defend myself. And if there were charges brought of sexual abuse, I'd get a public defender. Okay, I'm a lawyer. I know the game. What's he going to do? He's going to try and plead me out. What does that mean? I would be expected to plead guilty in exchange for not going to prison. It means that everywhere I move for the rest of my life, I would have to register with the police as a child abuser. And it was public information. and the public would find out, and the public would run me out of town. I didn't do anything. It was just another big lie, and it was going to change the rest of my life. And this is a weapon of mass destruction in legal terms. I mean, you bring an accusation of child abuse against a father, you totally ruin his life, whether or not he ever did anything. I spent 2 weeks talking with my brother and his wife, came to the conclusion that there was only one thing to do, and that was simply leave the jurisdiction.
There's a tremendous stigma attached to having an allegation of even domestic violence made against you, never mind an allegation of sexual abuse of your own children. This will essentially turn a father, into an ostracized member of society overnight. Life as you knew it is over. Never mind your family. The entirety of the life that you knew is over. Many men, fathers, will also lose their jobs as the information trickles out. And again, it doesn't matter if it ends up being untrue. The damage has been done.
Israel, and I found out 4 months later that in fact the police had investigated and had decided not to bring charges because they understood that the kids were lying. So in fact, was I a fool? I don't know. Was it a false alarm? It was a real alarm, but it turned out there was no fire.
My marriage counselor told me that if I didn't stop fighting for my 2 daughters, that I was going to lose my wife and my twins. So I was stuck between a rock and a hard place on what to do, and I didn't want to lose both families. So I just gave up. I gave up the weekend visits. I had to make a decision. Which family was I going to keep at that time?
So you were trying to save your current marriage.
Right.
That's a heck of a decision to have to make.
Yeah, I suffered with it for 3 years. With no comfort from my wife.
Why did you put up with that? I mean,
because I would have lost my other 2 children. I really had the potential of losing both families.
see, there was really a threat of divorce for like 3 years, prior
Yes.
to the split up. And you were afraid of this.
Yes.
So I understand that it is a critical issue, and I do not hear say that 209As or something of protection is needed. But I do find that you will see the 209As are, in fact, they are leveraged on custody battle. And once you are granted a 209A, you are then able to put the label of battering, abusive, rageful, all of these terms in front of the name of the father. And repetition does create reality in the probate court. It does. Because the labels resonate.
Society has evolved to a state now where the special interest lobbies have gotten a hold of the Congress and convinced them of their propaganda, whereby ordinary average fathers are presumed to be violent just based upon the assertion of fear made by their spouses. The attorneys across the country know it. The mothers across the country who are divorcing quickly realize it as they are told by the attorneys, who oftentimes frankly suborn perjury with a wink and a nod. Are you afraid of him? And it's used as a weapon nationally in order to gain advantage in child custody proceedings.
A call was made to the police station, and that's how I ended up where I am now.
What kind of call? I mean, some accusation was made?
Yeah, an accusation was made that I pushed her and kicked her, and that she was in fear of her one.
I am the child of divorce, and I think, I don't know how many of you sitting there are potentially a child of divorce. I lost 10 years with my father. I can never get back. And I was told by a court officer when I was 12 that, well, mommies always get the kids. And that has stuck with me. The question is why? But I think if you could hear from a contingency of children, that would be your most powerful voice. You do not have a father every other weekend. It doesn't work. You do not give a child a true parent relationship 8 hours every other Sunday and a court battle every time you need to figure out Christmas or a birthday. When you go in and a divorce is first filed, if there is an assumption that both parents have legal equal rights and the parenting will be shared, I think you're starting off on a much better platform. And today, although it may not be written in the books that the mother automatically gets custody, let's all be real. Let's just really face facts that that is usually the presumption.
Little girl, she stands alone, her face to the wind and her eyes to the sky. And she wonders why her dad got there. She wishes she was a little bird with wings to fly, so she could get to her daddy. He'd dry the tears from her eyes. Carry my story on the wings of note. Carry my song with the words of love. And now on my way. Yes, I'll go on my way.
And so now I think I see like one of your kids was over here today.
Yeah, they're both.
Yeah. So how's the relationship now? I mean,
It's God works in wonders, because as soon as I was thrown out of the house, it couldn't have been at I believe a more perfect timing for these two children, Kara and Katie, the 17 and the 15-year-old. Because they needed their father. My wife's grandparents babysat the children 3 days a week, and then we go over there for Sunday dinner most of the time. When this happened, all visitation with her own grandparents stopped, with my whole family stopped. My parents had to just recently go for grandparents' visitation. They were allowed 1 hour every week, which the first visit happened, and then after that, she was in contempt the whole time. She wasn't supposed to stay. She stayed and controlled the whole visit. It was very uncomfortable for my parents. And every week after that, she was always too busy, always too busy, always too busy. And they had to go back to court. They did get them for Christmas of this year. So my entire family did get to see them finally, after a year. And
so your family's seen them, but you haven't.
Right. I was not allowed to see them on Christmas. I had to stay across the street.
We have billions of dollars that our federal government and our state governments are paying to extract child support. And we have $0 that are being paid for enabling fathers to be an emotional and supportive factor in the child's life. We clearly, as a society, have made a value judgment. The only thing that counts is the money. We will exert all the power of government and all the power of the law to collect the money, But whether or not this child actually has a father that the child gets to see, that the child can do their homework with, can ride a bicycle with, can play ball with, can turn to that father if they're worried about a bully in school, a father they can pray with, a father they can look to for moral and spiritual guidance. We don't seem to care about any of those things if you judge on the basis of what our society is willing to actually pay for.
The Ware District Court just originally gave my wife everything I made. I was taking in $3,000 a month, and the judge in the district court just gave her the $3,000 a month.
Your whole paycheck?
My whole paycheck. Of course, the second month, I couldn't do it.
Courthouse, guys, then we'll move on. If we can get a disinfection team up to the front of the courthouse, we'll start to scrub some of the injustice out of this place. You better scrub hard, there's decades of dirt. Alright, it's time to clean up this dirt. The decontamination team from Wanted Justice is here to start scrubbing away the stench of injustice. The child abuse has been going on.
Very big part of the problem. A very big part of the problem. If you're going to do a documentary on deadbeat dads, a big part of that picture is the judge making up an AM. You want to feel like Atlas with the world on your shoulder. Have a judge say you could make $100,000 a year, base your child support on money that you know you can't make, and having it. But frankly, there's a guy in Canada seeking political asylum based just on that, and I'll tell you, rightly so. That's basically just like going after you. It's like asking me to be 10 feet tall.
She was ordered to pay the mortgage. I gave her the money for the child support, the mortgage, and she was to pay. So she was supposed to pay all the bills and the mortgage. My wife didn't pay any of the bills. She didn't pay any of the mortgage payments. I believe it was 3 months out of my credit card, which I never use credit cards. I took 3 months of bank payments out of my credit card to stop a foreclosure on the house. I took her to court for contempt and the probate and family court. The judge did it. The judge told me to basically, I have to pay everything from now on, plus all the back child support.
When the other parent's going to see that child? A foot parent from a child, buddy, and it needs to stop. Needs to stop now.
More often than not, what the courts will do is they will make the father responsible for everything. He'll still be responsible for the mortgage payment for the house, as well as his child support order and finding his own place to live. He'll be hiring an attorney. Attorney's fees are typically $300 an hour. So he's going to have this massive meter running right away of these legal expenses of his legal battle. Plus, experts might be appointed, like guardian ad litem, to say, oh, what's best for the children, this sort of thing. He'll be responsible for half of that. He'll be responsible for medical expenses. That's part of the child support guidelines. So he's faced with an enormous financial burden right at the get-go, which very often becomes, something that he simply is impossible to climb out of, a hole that's impossible.
I had no money left. They took me to court for contempt, and by this time I was frustrated, and I made a motion for a jury trial. I wanted the people of Massachusetts to see what was happening to me over the last several months. And when I went to court for contempt, and I asked for a jury trial, the probate and family judge threw me in jail for contempt. And they attached my accounts They attached my brother's accounts, they attached his wife's accounts, and they attached my nephew's accounts.
You know, people might, who know nothing about this might think that you can't put people in jail for owing a debt. That can't happen. That's debt is prison. That was out a long time ago. But that's not the way it's done. What happens is you're put in jail. You're jailed for being found in contempt of court, and contempt of court is a jailable offense. Now, there's legal scholars that would argue that this is an improper use of contempt power. Because really, what's going on is, that is in fact what you're being jailed for. You're being jailed for owing a debt.
You've got a marriage license. You just transferred all your property to the state. You no longer own anything. The state owns your house. They own your car. We want our families back. We want our children back. And we want to have a say in our children's lives. And we don't need the government telling us how to raise our children.
For recreational type activities, often involve things around the house. My boys and I went down and rented a rototiller for 1 year, and we rototilled a big patch of ground, and then we sat there and planted it all out. We put paths in there. We built little cages for rabbits to go underground and pop up in little cages, and that was the Mother's Day present for their mother. So those are, and we always had something like that going on where we were doing those types of activities. In the winter, we'd be sledding together. We had hills, and the whole family, all of us, she'd come out, we'd walk, we'd all sled together. So we had that kind of family, close family relationship during this whole period.
And how about now? What's your relationship like now?
I haven't been able to talk to my kids. The last time I talked to any of them was the oldest one, and that was in 2001.
2001, three years ago?
Right. And I haven't seen him since, I believe it was 1997, for about 4 or 5 hours, maybe about 6 hours for Christmas, day after Christmas in 97. I sent them cameras with self-addressed stamped envelopes and Instamatic cameras. I've never gotten any pictures from them. I've sent them mail that in the past when I was able to talk to them, they often didn't get it. I bought them a telephone so that they could call me. The telephone numbers are always being changed or disconnected, so I can't talk to them. The kids are growing up without their dad for no reason that I know of that they shouldn't be able to talk to their dad.
Do you have visitation?
I have court-ordered visitation. My wife and I, from the beginning, had joint physical and legal custody. And what I was told is to file a contempt for charge and put my reasons for in there, and then I could explain it to the judge to try to get the resolution that I wanted. And it always involved getting help for our problem. Getting the court to order us to go to help, a psychologist or somebody, a therapist, or whatever mechanisms were involved, get the DSS involved. There's state agencies that have resources to help families that are in trouble that can be saved, but nobody would put those resources into effect to help our family and save our family. And when I went in there, the judge instead issued a temporary, when I asked for that help, the judge in that case instead issued a temporary order, a sponte order, which means on his own discretion, from himself, I didn't ask for it, a visitation order now, limiting my access to my children to every other weekend, and I had to pick my children up during the middle of my workday, so I had to leave my job during the middle of the day to go visit my children.
Who asked for that schedule?
Her and her lawyer asked for that, or her lawyer did. She wasn't speaking.
Did they know that was in the middle of your workday?
Yep. I said that to the judge, and it did impact my job because when I couldn't make it, I mentioned it, and he says, if you don't pick up those kids, I will find you in contempt. I was told that I'd be found in contempt if I didn't pick up the children during that time frame.
A lot of times, even on my scheduled visits, she had stuff planned and set up, so there was, a lot of times he'd miss the weekends that he was supposed to come by because something else was up. They were doing something else or something. She really made it hard for me to see my kids a lot.
Did you ever, try to do anything about that when she, denied visitation? Did you try to report?
We've been in and out.
Don't take my kids to California! How dare you even consider trying to approve that
First told her I was going to file for divorce. She told me that I'd never see my kids again. She told me that she'd take them to Maine or something. And I told her she couldn't get away with that. That'd be illegal. It'd be like kidnapping. She has to get the court's permission to even leave the state. It's never stopped. It's like I said, she's down in Virginia right now with my son.
Did she ask the courts for permission? She just left? Did you try to stop them? Or?
I didn't know till after they were gone.
Well, we know of men that haven't seen their children in years. Some months, some years. Sometimes the children have been taken out of state, and so it's very difficult to have visitation with them. And then sometimes they might be on the other side of the country, and they have no idea where they are. They've basically just been stolen from them, and they can't find them. Yet, how can the state expect a man under those circumstances to pay for children that have been stolen from him? He doesn't even know where they are. He can't communicate with them. Or let me frame it another way. How could anybody condemn such a father in those circumstances who refuses to pay child support?
I got the rights. I'm supposed to be able to see my kids. They don't care if I don't see my kids. They care if I don't pay the money, though.
What do you think about that? I mean...
I'm not very pleased about it. That's why I'm not making payments right now. My daughter's, she's married, and my son's nowhere to be found as far as I'm concerned. Why should I make payments? They ain't going out of their way to make sure that I'm seeing my kids, are they? No, they're just going to go out of their way to see that I'm paying.
But we have to explain as men that we have value that is different from our pocketbook value. And that's the message that has to come across, not just to judges, but to our families, our friends, through the media. We have to force that into the public consciousness, because it's not until that is understood that we'll begin to shift the public toward the fact that a dad is not being a deadbeat when he doesn't pay money. A dad is being a deadbeat when he doesn't give time.
Once you get into this thing, you don't have, it becomes like a wormhole or something. Everything keeps pulling you down into this disaster, and there's no way to climb out. There's no ladder, there's no rope, there's nobody with a safety net saying, let's save the family. It's like the system, once you get married, once you say I do, everything in the state system for families is all these provisions on what about a family breaking up. But there's really nothing in there that says, let's first try to save the families because they're so important to our state, they're so important to our children that are going to be our next generation. The legislatures forgot about that when they wrote these laws, and there needs to be something added to that. And that's what was happening to us. Every time we went to the agencies that should be helping us, the only services they were willing to provide was services if you were going to break up. Never supposed to be unfair. Getting hurt is each other. You got little kids. What about their right to their mother, their father? What about their right? When I was a little boy, my mom and dad had a problem once. And they didn't have all these laws. It was done simpler, and it was more effective. But when my dad left for a few weeks, I told my mom that this wasn't going to happen. I wanted my dad. We didn't have an advocacy organization out there who's bent on destroying families. We didn't have groups that were supposed to save families interfering. When there was the welfare department, the social services department were called in, they actually tried to fix things and keep families together. What happened to the old laws where families stayed together? My mother and father stayed together. My kids grew up without a dad. He's 20 years old. And the system was supposed to protect them, turned their back and walked away. If they had had their own lawyer, if their interest was really that important, as everybody says, when they arrest somebody because they couldn't pay the full amount of child support, but they were making some payment, they never stopped making payments, they couldn't pay the full amount, they arrest somebody, they never think about that kid when he has to go in and say, my dad is a convict now. My dad has got a felony. It's not a misdemeanor, it's a felony. I'm sitting in jail myself personally with $200,000 bail while I'm watching people that do armed robbery getting out on $500 of personal recognizance, and then never showing up. They lose them. I see guys come in there. There was one case in the paper while I was in jail. The guy was accused of raping a young girl. He got PR, personal recognizance. 2 weeks later, he's arrested on a separate account of the same thing with a different young girl, and they get a $500 bail. What's going on in this society? Everybody knew where I was. I could have been out working, and they could have been hashing out the problems and coming up with a solution, and they could have been getting money. There could have been, if the kids' interests were really important, my family probably wouldn't be in a divorce situation now. I'd probably still be with my first wife, my ex-wife. My kids would have grown up with a mother and father in the same house, and none of this would happen. What's going on with my children? No, I can't talk to them. I called the doctor and asked what's going on. He won't give me information. The school won't give me information because she said that she didn't want it to. What about the court order? When I show up at the house to pick up my kids and there's a police officer there, and I say, today's my day to pick up the kids, I had a judge's order, and he says, well, there's nothing I'm going to do to enforce. I don't have to. But if I show up on a day that it's not my order, it's not on my order, he's going to arrest me for being there. What's going wrong with this system? There's something wrong with the system. And the reason is because we're not putting the kids' interest first.
I'm going to reach over here. Okay. And this is the email. It was in February of 2004. Dad, please help me. I need you. Mom's completely insane, and she's ruining our lives. She has Adam in a mental hospital because he tried to commit suicide because of her. She still has that chins on me, and she keeps taking me in and threatening to call the DSS and kick me out. Today she threatened to call DSS because I wouldn't turn down my headphones. I need to get out of here. I was planning to get emancipated when I turned 16, but I can't wait that long. That was only a month and a half away. A month away. I can't wait that long. I need to leave now, and I need your help, please. Please help me. I miss you, and I wish I'd never moved back in with her. And me and Adam both know that what you were accused of isn't true. She convinced us it was. She pretty much had us brainwashed into thinking you were evil, and it's not true. And I know that now. Please write back as soon as you get this. I need you, Rachel.
You must feel pretty helpless at this point in time.
My son tried to commit suicide.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody ever told me why. And he wouldn't talk to me until about a month ago.
Mm-hmm.
And a month ago, he talked to me on his birthday. And he told me that he had started the lie that I sexually abused him. And I think that's why I tried to commit suicide, because I don't know why he did this. He must have been angry at something. I suspect he was angry because we weren't living together. He was always angry about that. He wanted me to come back. He never accepted the divorce. For whatever reason, he started the lie and he admitted it. And when you think about the burden of guilt that kids living with, he had lied once before in '97, and then he lied this time, and he lost his father. There's no question of the connection.
We're back talking about child and family court. We have just heard from the perspective of a documentary filmmaker and a reporter who say the system is biased against women in cases where charges of physical and sexual abuse are brought. Now, the other side, Steve Basile is director of the Fatherhood Coalition, and documentary filmmaker Garland Waller remains with us as well. You indicated in an email to us that you have studies that show just the opposite bias against men.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I did a 5-year study in the Gardner District Court studying restraining orders. It was a 3-phase research initiative. In the first phase, we wanted to compare and contrast male and female allegations of abuse in the courts to see first if male and female defendants were similarly abusive. In the next phase of the research, we wanted to examine the court's response to these allegations of abuse to see if the courts responded differently to male and female requests for protection. And we had a planned third phase of research in which we wanted to examine certain key characteristics that wouldn't be necessarily found in the official court records. Things like, did the orders escalate or reduce tensions? Was there evidence of false allegations? Did plaintiffs in these cases ever initiate attacks and that sort of thing?
These would all be good things to know, but I would think that when you look at the how allegations are perceived, well, certainly men tend to be bigger and stronger.
Right.
You know, if I had to choose right now between being punched in the jaw by you or Miss Waller, I'd pick Miss Waller.
Mm-hmm.
So men tend to be bigger and stronger. So I would think that it's a normal predisposition to, if a man claims he was abused by a woman, woman claims she was abused by a man, you know, it's that old thing, if the pitcher hits the stone or the stone hits the pitcher, it's bad for the pitcher.
Well, Barry, an injury is certainly not a requirement for domestic violence. If I was to go home every day and harm my wife, but harm her in a way that she didn't receive an injury, I'd be a batterer. Physical attacks by women are certainly a serious thing that we should consider. Number one, it's a crime and it's wrong. Mm-hmm. Number two, it normalizes a certain level of violence in the relationship. Number three, it leaves them susceptible to eventual retaliation. And fourth, and most importantly, it models violence for children. So whether there's an injury or not is inconsequential.
Cops and say, could you come up here and remove my husband? We're fighting. The cops would come up and look at my face, would be all bloody and scratches all over me. The cops would ask my ex-wife, what you do to him? My wife would just break down on the cops. He deserved it. He needs it. You're under arrest, Mrs. Wilden, did say. Bring her to jail.
I wish something would happen to you on the way home. I'm a lawyer, should say I wish it treated you.
She began throwing, so why did you call from jail?
She was a pretty nasty lady.
What do you mean by that?
She, unstable, physically violent.
Different occasions, she would punch me, give me bloody noses, attack me. One time I even dialed 911.
So she was throwing stuff at me. I've been woken up with hot water cord on me, alarm clocks thrown at me. She broke my hand with a glass ashtray.
Broke a hammer with a red glass ashtray.
Yeah, because I was sleeping on the couch.
She just slammed?
Yeah, just slammed it. Ashtray.
You go to the hospital?
Oh yeah, I guess. I got stitches. I got scar from it right there when that blew off.
You say violence. I mean, what kind of violence were you?
Tried to take my head off before with a bag of frozen chickens, threw a knife at me, woke up getting throttled out of the cold and all dead sleep.
You tell me something and I'd do it. And I'd do a lot of things. I'd make sure that the cooking was all done, the housework was all done. Everything was completely done for when she got home from work. I'd get my head rimmed. I'd get freaking yelled at, screamed at. I remember spending 8 hours once. I dug a hole and put some hot rocks in the bottom of the hole and put pork chops and foil and potatoes and threw them on the hot rocks, cooked them all day long. I was come home from work, so I got something special for you. So I dug it all up, rang it in, it smelled awesome. So that's all you did all day. You didn't freaking vacuum, you didn't sweep the floor, you didn't do the dishes. But they were all done. There might have been a couple of dishes. Maybe I didn't sweep the floor by vacuums. Just stuff like that. It's like I just got to the point where I was scared, bro.
It's so frustrating. You feel so powerless when you've got somebody you know needs help. You know they're in a really bad situation, and it's just because they're a male that they can't get help.
What types of violence and situations are they subject to?
Physical, a lot of psychological and emotional. Women can control the finances. They can control their husbands by threatening to take their kids away. A lot of throwing things, hitting them with phones, remotes, knives, chasing them with knives. I mean, it runs the gamut. It's no different than what happens to female victims. Mm-hmm. Except guys have a harder time admitting that the abuse is as injurious. You know, I mean, she punched me, but you know, I'm a guy. I can take it. You know, the bruises and the cuts, I'm a guy. I can take it. You know, that kind of thing. So, and then I sit there and I tell them, but why should you have to? It's unacceptable for anybody to be physically violent to another person other than self-defense.
I went to counseling all over this stuff, and they said, you're a battered husband. You know, you can either accept this and deal with it on a counseling basis, or fight back and be in trouble all the time, or, you know, you can take it as you want to take it. So I basically just accepted the fact that, hey, if she wants to hit me, let her hit me, you know. So I just got numb from it, you know. I think if vice versa for a woman. If a woman gets beat from a guy weekly, on a weekend basis, the girl's going to be like, you know, just accept it and just hide in the closet until finally one day it's going to click. Wow, I don't have to put up with this shit no more. And that's basically what happened to me. But a lot of guys just don't come out because they're too much of a pussy to say, hey, no, I ain't going to let no girl hit me and this and that. Well, I let it happen to me.
Why don't they leave?
Some of the things I've heard is, I love her. I want to heal my marriage. I don't want a divorce. You know, I got married for life. My kids, what will happen to my kids? I can't go anywhere. I'm disabled. I have no funding, you know, no finances. I have no, she's isolated me from friends, family, so nobody will talk to me. I haven't told anybody else what's going on. Lots of shame. Fear of not being accepted or believed. And sometimes they have run into that. You know, it's been their experience that they've tried to get help and they're ridiculed or laughed at.
When you call 911, did the police arrive?
They never showed up.
They never showed up?
No.
Did the cops ever suggest that you go out and take a restraining order against her?
Oh, yeah. But it was her mother's house at the time, so if I did that, I would be the one that would have to leave the house.
Who told you that?
Basically her. And like I said in the beginning, she enabled me, so anything she did say, I believed. So
Did you ever think about, you know, taking out a protective order against her at any point in time?
I guess being a male, I don't know, maybe it was just too macho for me. I thought I could handle the whole situation myself.
For
Right.
abuse order, go see the advocate outside before you can be heard. I went out to see the advocate and find out, well, you're a man, please don't talk to men, we only talk to women.
Did you ever consider, like, taking a restraining order against her, anything like that?
No, after I filed for divorce, we didn't have much to do with each other.
No, I mean while you were in the marriage.
No, not really.
Well, why not?
I don't know. Forget out. I don't need a restraining order if I just go away.
It said, you're a man. Can't you handle your woman? Don't you dare handle your woman. If you do, you're in jail. You know, so one important thing I always remind callers is to remember the 2 R's. Never restrain, never retaliate. Because if you defend yourself, there's no such thing as self-defense for a man against a violent woman. You're going to jail.
Why aren't you going back?
I can't go back
Because?
because there's a rule in court that you can't modify child support in arrears. So that means that every week that I've been gone is a debt I owe permanently.
Mm-hmm.
And also, there's now, and back after 4 months, it was contempt of court. Now, after two years, I have 2 felony charges against me. 1 for not paying the child support, and 2 for not arranging to pay the child support. So now I have 2 felony charges, each with 2.5 years imprisonment behind it, if I go back. Why am I going to go back? It's a gamble as to whether some sympathetic jury or sympathetic judge, if that exists, which I doubt, is going to realize that I left because of an untenable, a situation which was a lose for me. And I left basically to keep my freedom. I didn't do anything, and whatever happened, the least likely result was the judge is going to throw up his hand and say, I know you're innocent. And I'll throw out these charges. That's not going to happen. It doesn't happen. So why would I go back? Besides all this now, if I go back now, Social Security numbers, you think I'm going to be able to get a job? Even if I'm found innocent, even if I'm given a presidential pardon? Oh, this is on the record. And I owe the IRS. And I owe from this college tuition for our first marriage. And I owe, what, 160, 170, I don't even know what it is, $180,000 of child support, which cannot be eradicated because of the court rule of child support in arrears. What in hell am I going to do now?
But these are financial reasons, right? These are financial reasons. You say you left.
No, excuse me. 5 years in jail is not a financial reason. Okay? I'm not going to jail for something. I mean, I was squeezed into a corner, and I found a way out of the corner. Unfortunately, what happened was she went too far. She kept raising the stakes, and finally she didn't realize that you could do something that was just too much. And I left.
It's been a while, but now you're out, and now you finally have broke free. After a while, it all works out, and you will find a destiny.
This is a true song I wrote out down the fellas in East 702, which it gave me the chance to express my pain and frustration as I was going through. And I want these women to know that I've got the child support blues. I should stay away from you. Oh, child support blues. I should stay away from you. Yeah, those sorry night women cause me to lose my cool. Let me tell you why. It all started when I met this woman. She was the first love again in my life. It felt good, I got excited, and I asked her to be my wife. Yes, I did. I was so in love, I bragged nobody could break us up. Until I saw it for myself. I caught her sleeping with somebody else. Yes, I did. You know what? That woman had the nerve to say I'm having a baby by her. So I stayed anyway, and I regret it every day. I've got the child support blues. I should have stayed away from you. Oh, child support blues. I should have stayed away from you. Yeah, those Saturday women cause me to lose my cool. Let me tell you why. Now 2 years gone by, I forgot about the other guy. When she said, you have to leave, I'm making room for my baby daddy. Oh, I was so hurt inside, I could have punched her right straight in the eye. But instead, I walked away. I didn't need a jail charge that day. You know what? She lied from the start. She broke her innocent man her heart. I bet some more who did the same, but I had to wear more that day. And before I made it out the door, she said, I'm gonna blame you for one more. I've got the child support blues. I should have stayed away from you. Oh, child support blues. I should have stayed away from you. Yeah, those Saturday night women cause me to lose my cool. Let me tell you what. I had one who had twins. She was sleeping with my so-called friend. I had one who had I've got the child support blues. I should stay away from you. Oh, child support blues. I should stay away from you. Yeah, those sideline women cause me to lose my cool. Take more home. Let me do my jail walk one time. I got the child support blues. I lost everything I had. Yeah, and it made me so damn mad. They didn't care at all. As long as I paid the cash, I've got the child support blues. It's just the dirty things they do. Yeah, to accuse you and you do any way they can. Somebody was to blame, and I was the one that they chose. And that's why I'm gonna do you. I'm gonna do you the way they did me. Lord help me. I'm gonna do you. I'm gonna do you the way they did me. I'm gonna do the thing that you did to me. Yeah, 'cause I lost everything I had. Make me so mad. Paid up all my cash. Went and go round and land. I lost everything I had. Make me so mad. Paid up all my cash. Went and go round and land. Go sideline